Okay, so it's time for another D6 Evolution tactics video, and this week it's all about the heroic intervention, which is one of my absolute favourite rules in 40k. And if you do this right, you can really catch your opponent off guard, and there's so much depth to this rule. So let's dive into the video and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Welcome guys, it's Andy here from D6 Evolution. Now today's video is all about the heroic intervention. Now I think this is one of the best rules in 40k, and it's such an open rule, there's so much you can do with it. And I was waiting for the latest FAQ to drop just to see if any little things changed before I made this video. Now, anyone who's new to the channel, D6 Evolution, we're all about 40k tactics, and really the whole channel is just aimed at trying to get, improve your game, really. So, on with the video. So, heroic intervention. Let's cover the basics to start. So, just so we've all got a good understanding of exactly how it works. Then I'm going to go over some of the shenanigans you can do with this, because it's brilliant. So, first thing is, it happens at the end of your opponent's charge move. If you've got any characters which are in range of his models within 3 inches, you can heroically intervene. It doesn't matter whether he charged any of his units or not. If you're within 3 inches of his models with one of your characters, it's fair game. Thing number 2, you don't actually have to go into combat. A lot of people think you do, but you only have to move a little bit closer. You can move a 1/10 of an inch closer, it doesn't matter. So even models which are forced to heroically intervene, like Black Shields and Deathwatch units, you only have to move them a little bit. You don't have to go directly closer. So if there's an objective 3 inches and it's closer to an enemy model, move your models onto the objective if that's what is good for you. The third thing is, it's not a charge. It still happens in the charge phase, so you can move over other models, but it's not a charge. So there's positives with that. So you don't get overwatched. You can interact, so if models as outfly, they can technically heroically intervene into flyers. They still can't attack them, but sometimes it's important to start moving things in a way which will work. There are negatives. You don't get to swing first because you didn't charge. You don't get any charge-specific bonuses because you didn't charge. So there's pros and cons to it, but it's really good. The next thing is, you can heroically intervene in your opponent's turn even if you're in combat. And I think that's really, really important, and that's something which a lot of people don't know. ETC players, you can't do that because the ETC FAQ spoiled all your fun and you're not allowed to do that. But for the rest of us, we're allowed to do it. So unless you're base to base in combat, once you've been charged, you can heroically intervene and move around things. Next thing to know is units, they can heroically intervene. So some units have an ability to heroically intervene like a character. And thank goodness they actually clarified what on earth that actually meant in terms of how you were meant to move the models in our latest FAQ. So they move each individual model towards the closest individual model, which is how every other pylon and consolidate works in the game. So thankfully they've kept it consistent. And the last thing is, guys, some things they can gain the character keywords such as Imperial Knights, and when they take a relic, when they take a warlord trait for Imperial Knights, they gain the character keyword and then they can move their 3 inches. So if you're trying to move block them, make sure you stay outside of 3 inches, like you've seen me do in a lot of my other videos. And just lastly, I just remembered, some units have abilities to heroically intervene more than 3 inches. And that actually makes up a huge bubble. Like Space Wolves, they have a 12-inch bubble around them because they can heroically intervene 6 in either direction. And that's really strong. That's really strong. So, enough of the basics, let's get on to the shenanigans. Okay, so here we have it. So, protecting objectives. Now, I think this is really nice. So, usually when you play Warhammer, you measure to the centre of an objective to see who controls it. In ITC, you play to the edge, so this will only work if you've got slightly bigger models than this Eversaw. So, what I've done in my turn is I've put this Eversaw Assassin straight in the middle of this objective. So if the cultists here want to come within range to claim the objective within 3 inches of the centre, if they want to come in here, they have to get within range of the assassin. Now, because it's my opponent's turn when he moves in, even if he doesn't charge, this assassin can move in and he can start murdering cultists. They're not going to survive an Eversaw Assassin. So it's a really good way of doing things, is just put your model over the centre of an objective. If you've got an Imperial Knight with a character keyword, you're absolutely laughing because nothing's going to want to come near it. So really, really nice little trick there. Now, there is a way around this, and I showed this when I previously did the heroic intervention video, is that if you've got two squads here, actually the Eversaw has to go towards the closest squad. So if you put this one just out at 3 inches, so it's claiming the objective, and put this one over at 2 inches, the Eversaw assassin has to go towards the closest model, so that if he wanted to heroically intervene now, he'd have to come towards this model, which meant this unit here can still claim the objective, whereas this poor cultist here, he's probably not going to survive. So as you can see, with everything I want to show you, I'm going to show you how you can do it, and I'm going to show you how you get out of it if your opponent tries to do it to you. So in the next example, the shenanigans continue. So let me show you what I've got here, because I've changed the armies around a bit. So I've got my Dark Angels here against 2 assassins. So we've got the Eversaw assassin here, and we have my Eversaw assassin, my favourite model ever, which is here. So the Dark Angels have charged in. They've charged in with both units here, and Samael's within an inch of this model here. Now, what I'm going to do here, because obviously Samael wants to attack the Eversaw rather than the Klexus assassin, because the Klexus, you hit on 6s, you're not going to do anything to him in combat. So what we're going to do here is, when I heroically intervene, this model here, this Inceptor here is actually the closest model. So when I pile in with my heroic intervention, I'm going to move 3 inches round this way. Obviously you nudge your models as you're going around just to gain that extra inch. Never do that, guys. But as you can see here, by just moving slightly under 3 inches, I've got slightly closer to this model here, so I've fulfilled my requirements for the heroic intervention, and I've moved away from Azrael. Now, if the Klexus assassin wasn't here, Azrael would simply come round this way and re-engage, so the whole maneuver would be pointless. But actually, because this Eversaw assassin, this Klexus assassin now is closer, Samael, he can't actually chase after this Eversaw assassin, so he's run away around this way, so the Inceptors can attack him, but the guy who is actually going to kill him, Samael, has to pile in towards the Klexus assassin here. Now let's just quickly reset that. So obviously there's a lot of things the Dark Angel player could have done. So for example, he could have charged in and made sure that Samael was the closest character. That would have definitely helped. Or he could simply base to base the Eversaw assassin. So now that he can't physically pile in with his heroic intervention because he's already base to base. But most of 40k, I find, is picking up on your opponent's mistakes. So if we reset things here, so the Inceptor here's the closest model, he's within an inch, and all you're simply doing is you're moving around this way in a way that another model that he doesn't want to attack is the closest model. So I think that's really strong. So equally well, you can do this as quite a defensive tactic as well. So for example, this Eversaw assassin's going to want to charge in here, he makes it into Samael, but what he really wants to do is consolidate into at least one of these tanks here, to stop it shooting next turn. So in order for Samael to defend against this move, when you pile in here, because it's your opponent's turn, Samael can simply base to base this Eversaw assassin before he gets to pile in, consolidate, or tag the tank. So I think that's really, really strong, and it's important to remember that. Equally well, if you're just faced with these 2 tank commanders here, and the Eversaw assassin, he's dived into one here, what he's going to do when he piles in and consolidate, he's going to pile in, he's going to consolidate, and he's going to try and get in the middle of the 2 tanks. But these Lehman Russ tank commanders, they're actually characters, so when he charges the first one, same thing as with Samael, base to base him, limit your losses here. You're going to lose 1 tank shooting next turn, but you're not going to lose 2. So I think it's really important just to remember that you can use it as an offensive tactic to avoid to actually run out of combat, but you can also use it to lock your opponent down if you think he's going to try some shenanigans. Okay, so in our next example here, and this is something I alluded to at the start of the video, you don't always have to engage units when you have a chance to heroically intervene. So the cultists have moved forwards, they're not quite in range of the objective. They didn't want to charge Samael because they thought he'd murder him. So Samael can do something here. He can actually claim this objective. So rather than just piling in and hoping he wipes out the cultists, but risks actually those cultists activating themselves and piling and consolidating onto the objective, the more sensible thing to do here is actually, when you heroically intervene, you can move your 3 inches, you're going to be within range of the objective here, and you're going to stay more than an inch away from those those cultists. So this is one of my absolute favourite tricks, which is exploding transports with characters inside. Now, there's such a range that these characters can heroically intervene from, and because you're moving models in your opponent's turn, that's absolutely huge. That means you can set up your heroic interventions so easily. So the Chaos side, they're blowing up this transport this turn. So Azrael, he has to get out within 3 inches, which means that the back of his base has to just be within 3. So for most models, that means they've got effectively a 4-inch move. But the bigger your base, obviously, the more this tactic works. So Azrael is just under the 4-inch mark at the moment. Now, these cultists are just over 6 inches away from the Rhino. So actually, if the cultists don't charge Azrael, which they wouldn't want to do, Azrael can now heroically intervene and get them in combat. And when he kills then he can start. When it's his turn, he can pile in, he can kill these cultists, and then he can consolidate. So you can see, you can get a huge amount of movement out of something like this, and it's something your opponent won't expect you to do. And if you've got models which can, multiple models which can heroically intervene out of transports, or units that can heroically intervene out of transports, such as Custodes or Deathwatch, they've all got models or abilities which can give whole units heroic intervention. You've got this absolutely huge threat range. Even a little Rhino such as this, it's got 7 inches all around it where you can potentially heroically intervene. Okay, so how do you counter all these crazy things I've shown you already? So remember, heroic intervention, although there's a lot you can do with it, is quite restrictive. You have to be within 3 inches to actually use it, so just stay outside of 3 inches. If you have to get inside 3 inches, make sure you declare it as a target when you're charging, because otherwise, you can't fight it, the character heroically intervenes in, and they can fight you, and the whole thing gets very messy. Next thing is, because it's not a charge, they can't actually activate if nothing's within 1 inch of them. So even if they heroically intervene if you're doing the rest of your combat because you activate first, you can pile in and consolidate, and you can actually move outside of 1 inch of that model so that they can no longer activate. And that's one easy way out of it if you've made a mistake. The next thing to do is, if you think they're going to try some silly shenanigans, make sure you base to base that unit before it can heroically intervene and move in other places to be endlessly annoying. So that's it, guys. That is my heroic interventions shenanigans video. I hope you liked it. Post up in the comments below. Let me know if I've missed anything. Let me know if I've got anything wrong. And I'll be back with some more tactics videos soon. If you like what you see here, check out this video here on how to counter deploy your enemy, because I think this is one of the best lessons in 40k, and certainly I've learned a lot from shooting that video. And guys, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.